feather to another day. Breathing underwater, deeper than the waves. Floating like a feather to another day. Floating like a feather, deeper than another day. Floating like a feather, deeper than another day. Floating like a feather, deeper another day. Floating like a feather, breathing underwater, deeper than the waves. Floating like a feather to another day. Breathing underwater, deeper than the waves. Floating like a feather to another day. Floating like a feather, deeper than another day. Floating like a feather, deeper than another day. Floating like a feather, another day. Floating like a feather.
And a good evening, and welcome in to a sunny, beautiful Imola circuit here. It is round 2 of the Can-Am Season 7 Tier 1 season. My name is Boss. I'm going to be your commentator tonight here for the Tier 1 race. It is a near full grid as we enter week number 2 of what is promising to be a mighty competitive season based off of what we saw in week number 1. We'll shout out Peter with the tier 1 sub. We appreciate it, man. Yeah, I don't think we've actually, at least not like, well, I've been on stream. I don't think we've actually had a sub before, so that's pretty cool to see. Means that we're kind of doing things right, and doing things a little bit wrong, I guess, is Ronaroa, who just left the session, so maybe some connectivity issues for our EU counterpart. Pushed his race ban that he'd accumulated from last season, to next week, in order to drive tonight for Red Bull. We'll hope we can get him back in the lobby here. Or maybe not Red Bull, sorry. VCarb. I knew I was going to have issues with this all season. Honestly, I knew I was going to. But we're entering here. It is a 19-car full quali session here tonight in Imola. So we'll have all three. Couple reserves on the track. Looks like T.O. Will got picked up late in the day. And I know that because I was looking for a reserve about 30 minutes before the deadline. Ended up agreeing to have Jowser in the seat in T2 for Williams. But Will looks like he was one of the guys that I was messaging with, and he ended up missing out on the drive by about 10 seconds in terms of when I actually sent the message. But it looks like he did find his way into Tier 1 here this evening. And yeah, we've just got a good lineup here. We're on with Josh right now here in the Haas. He's taking us around one of our first hot laps of the session. Did not manage to trigger track limits right there. Went just outside the white lines here around Aqua Minerale. And again, he's going to go over the white lines, and that time the game will tag him. We've heard stuff all, I want to say all week, but in the run-up to tonight's race, we've heard a lot about the track limits. A little bit buggy this year, or with the latest patch, I should say, a little bit buggy in Imola. We are expecting a lot of penalties tonight, a lot of track limits, so we're going to expect to see the 3s and 6s. You'll probably see some guys maybe get up into the 12 and the 15, just depending on what the computer is willing to give. So we'll expect a pretty penalty-heavy race. Drivers have been advised at this point that the league is not going to take off ticky-tack track limit penalties unless you are shoved off by another driver, and that's what causes it. So, there will be really no forgiving the game if the game does kind of job you on that one. We'll go on board now with Josh. Let him take you through 2 sectors of a lap here in Imola. Josh hits the timing board with a 1:15.965. Just 5 times on the board so far. Still a little under 13 minutes to go in our opening round of qualifying here. We will lose the bottom 4 drivers this time around. And the top 15 will continue on. I think, unless it's different with 19 cars, but I'm pretty sure that's, generally speaking, the practice. I think with 19 drivers, it still gives you 15 that get through to the second stage of qualifying. You're on board with Cloud right now. So you're going to see Gronk trying to get, I think that's Rano that he's trying to get back in the session here. Gronk's still in the box, no time on the board for the McLaren driver just yet, and that's Rano hopping back in the session here. Cloud using all the track out of these final couple corners here. Let's see what he can bring to the line for Ferrari. And he'll go P3 with a 1:15.8. I would expect to see times getting around the 13s and 12s as we go here. One guy you'll want to watch out for, see how he fares as well. Faint Fawn on the grid, currently in P8, driving in reserve for Aston Martin with Seth out tonight. Of course, Aston Martin, as you see at the bottom of your screen on the scroll, P7 in the team standings. That was 2 points that were scored by Dave in week 1. And a big 2 points to get them started this season. Little snap here of oversteer, it looks like, from Buzz T as Final Flame goes fastest, and as his teammate crosses the line, he will go into P8 with a 1:16.529 for Buzz T. Rookie struggled in his debut in Canada. I think the latest patch, again, and I keep saying latest patch, but that latest patch I don't think has been particularly kind to a lot of controller players. You know, I drive on controller. I haven't driven too much with the new patch on, but I know that Fief, the commissioner, I was kind of chatting with him earlier in the week. He said car switching direction rapidly on controller does not feel good. Says the car does not feel responsive. Feels a little bit sluggish even with some of the pointier setups. And I think Buzz T would probably echo those statements as you're on board with your 3-time defending drivers champion Lucid, trying to get the tires warm. He won last week in an absolute nail-biter, went long on the hards, bailed out a bit by a safety car, and then was able to take it to the end. You thought he might have the win stripped due to a little bit of contact that saw him, not intentionally in any way, but saw him shunt Godfather off the track. Godfather didn't report, no penalty, so therefore Lucid kept that win. Took the early advantage over Final Flame, the man currently sitting on pole, last year's P2 driver in the championship. And it figured to be much the very top of the order, figured to look a lot like it did in last year's championship. It was kind of the same guys that were up at the top, remained up at the top. So we'll look to see who can unseat somebody up at the top as Lucid embarks on his second flying lap of Q1 here. Invalidated his first attempt, took a cool down lap. Let's just take a peek and see what the reigning champ is going to put in here. Fairly neat and tidy through those first couple corners here. This is a tricky set of downshifts, and he's onto the apron and invalidates there once again. So we'll check back in with Lucid in a moment. Gronk also on a valid lap. Rano also on an invalid lap. So we'll go with T.O. Will. He is the first guy that we find not on an invalid lap. And we'll see what we get here. Rockin' 94 in reserve on the Alpine. And it looks like he is going to slow things down and let by the McLaren of Gronk, who's back on a hot lap here. Again, Gronk, one of the contenders this season. Did finish P8 in the opening race, but that was largely due to penalties that bumped him down the order. So Gronk, one of the quicker drivers. As long as he keeps it clean, he will be a factor in just about every single track that you have on the calendar. Takes all of the track on that left-hander at the beginning of Sector 2 here towards Aqua Minerale. And up the hill he goes, keeps it within track limits. This should be a pretty competitive time up at the top, and it's going to be competitive when you set a purple Sector 2, and he's off through the grass is the McLaren, and that Sector 2 goes for naught. So he's going to have to re-up. Looks like the battery is still at 100. I don't know. That is not a glitch, but he will get another whack at it here. So we'll come back to Ronaroa. Working that deploy down at 17%, so he's going to be finishing his lap here. What lap time can the VCARB pump in? No lap time, because he said, I am going to box and my battery doesn't indicate jack. So let's go on the hunt here. 6 minutes 43 seconds to go in Q1. Faint Fawn on a flyer, maybe. Looks like he is, maybe. That battery is deploying. It's on hot lap. And he is up the hill here, entering sector 3. 4.5 tenths down on his previous time. Keeps it within the lines through the chicane. Going to try to use all the battery here as he heads down towards those last few corners. What kind of time can the Aston Martin pump in? Takes that penultimate corner beautifully. Left a little room to the inside just to make sure that he had it. Didn't lose the car. He'll come to the line, and that is good for P12, a 16.031 for Faint Fawn. And now under 6 minutes to go, you're going to start getting some question marks here. Who is in that at-risk zone? You've got to feel, there goes Gronk up to the top of the charts. It's P6 for him. Cloud retires, so he feels pretty confident with a 15.8. Flame has retired. Obviously, a 15.0 is going to get you through. But where is the cutoff? Who is our last driver who is truly at risk to be knocked out here in Q1? Obviously, Ronaroa in trouble with no lap time just yet. Svensson and Tio Will, both the reserves, in trouble because you don't have a lap time yet. That is Ronaroa, who just drove off the track. That was to avoid looks like a worked around Mercedes. I think that was Dismal, who just had a moment right in front of him there. And sent the V-carb scurrying off the track to avoid any debris or anything like that. Under 5 minutes to go. At this point, I would say that Fawn and Dismal might be the last two. It looks like who can comfortably get on a push lap if they need to. You feel like when you look at the gap of 5 tenths from Fawn to Vivoda, that feels like a pretty comfy gap here. So maybe it's a 16.5. That's a Haas who is off the road. Yeah, as I'm watching the stream feed, apologies if any of the stream feels a little bit choppy in terms of video. The laptop I stream on is about 6 going on 7 years old. I think 6, 7 years old. So she is, I can feel the keyboard. It's about 9,000 degrees right now. Nice and hot. So yeah, just chugging away, doing the best you can to run the stream. But Vivoda will start a push lap here. And as we get closer to that 3 minute mark, oh, Flame just left the session. That's not good. As we get closer to that 3 minute mark, let's see what kind of drama is going to unfold here towards the cutoff. Still awaiting times from 3 drivers. Still awaiting a valid time from Lucid, who's just gone purple through the first sector. We'll stay on board with this and see if we can get Lucid on a valid lap. You're at the point now where you've just got to get a valid banker on the board and hope that your raw pace is enough to see you through. Parks has retired from the session. He's in P3 for Haas with a 15.3. Lucid kept it legal, kept it on track, a purple sector 2. This is looking like the fastest time in Q1 if he can stick it through these last couple corners here. Lucid around the penultimate corner. No lockups. Able to keep it on track. Able to get around that final corner. And this looks like it's going to be more than enough. And it is. A 15.1 puts him in P2. So Lucid is now safe from elimination. It comes down to Buzz T, Matt, Ronaroa, and Tio Will, who are in the drop zone for Q1. Will sliding his way through some corners, and it looks like we're invalid here. So, oh, that's going to be Ronaroa. I cut to him right as he shacks it into the wall. He is missing part of that front wing, And you've got to think that is probably the end of qualifying for the V-Carb. Another lockup there through the chicane. Someone just went flying through the chicane in front of him. I think that was Buzz T who just ripped through that chicane under braking. So here we go. Ronaroa, is he going to have enough? He's got a gas light flashing. I think he is done. No, he's going to stay out. He's going to give it a go. He's got 10% battery to get all the way around the track. And he just drove on the grass and is invalid. So I am not sure what we're doing here. But we will find out. He is through the gravel again. His hot lap is still on. And he's just run straight into an Aston Martin. And the Aston Martin is giving that right back to him, a 5-place grid penalty. This is all being caught in 4K, ladies and gents. We are going to let the admins handle that one. We'll go on board with T.O. Will. Trying to get a hot lap in here. And actually not looking terrible through this final sector here. It's going to take, at this point, Svensson's out of the session here. He is 3/10 clear with 30 seconds to go of Vivoda. We know Ronaroa's out. Will can only get himself to 17th, so he's going to have to drive a faster lap than that. Buzz T out of the session. Ronaroa out of the session. That's 2 drivers gone. Vivoda in the drop. Will in the drop. And Matt in the drop zone as well. Can anyone lift themselves out? It's 4/10 up through 2 and some change here for Matt. Can he pull himself to the line in time for a drop? Matt out of the final corner. He is to the line, and it's a 16.5, but it's not enough to pull him out of P19. So Matt eliminated as well. Will is trying with an empty battery to get himself out of Q2. I don't know where he's at in terms of his sector times. We're going to get a good indication here up in that top right corner on your screen as he exits sector 2. And he's 7/10 up, so he is not going to do it either. Vivoda is out as well, and there you have it. So Q1 completed. We will lose Ronaroa, perhaps for the race as well, and we will lose Matt, Buzz T, Will, and Vivoda. Svensson, with that early retirement, is just safe for Red Bull. Wow. Cracking bit of Q1 action there. And we will be back with 15 drivers remaining as we start Q2.
I was so confused before I met you. Now I don't have you. Oh, the color stripped from my review. Now I don't know what to do. Spent all my
Alrighty, and welcome back here. It is time for Q2 from Imola. We've got a couple of Haas's who are racing their way out of the gates. We have 15 drivers who are still alive after Q1, and we're going to see 5 more of them at least eliminated before we head to the top 10 shootout to see who will be P1 at the start of this race. Looks like Josh behind Parks and following mighty close on the outlap here. Gronk did sneak in. He snuck into the 14s right at the end of the session as we were monitoring the drama and checking to see if anybody could pull themselves out from a Q1 knockout. Gronk did manage to crack into the 114s there. So as we said, if he keeps it clean, one of the fastest guys on the circuit. So you're going to see him consistently up in that podium fight here as we're going to have 2 Haas's on a hot lap to start Q2. Let's see what we've got. We can ride on board. Oh, maybe not. Someone is blocking someone. I don't know what's going on. Josh is on a hot lap, so let's let Josh take the corners here around Imola. And to the line, Josh with a 1:15.964, the first timed lap to hit the board here in Q2. Faint Fawn, after enduring his way through the BS there at the end of Q1. The Aston Martin working his way on an invalid lap, which I'm guessing might be an outlap, or just a second outlap, as that's boatloads of traffic there that guys are trying to get through, as that was Flame on the right side of your screen, and then Fawn on the left. A McLaren coming through. Both McLarens. Is that Gronk right there? At least Gronk, it looks like, is on an outlap. That wasn't someone getting blocked on a hot lap. Again, Gronk, the fastest time posted in Q1. It was a high 14. I think a 14.7 if I was correct, is Squatch goes fastest with a 15.4 and then a 15.2 from Goat, who's checking in the V-Carb. His teammate, the source of drama last week with him, and now the source of some more stuff this time with another team on the grid. Rano already with a race ban to serve. I'm not 100% sure how that will be looked on. Here goes Gronk, though. Through the first sector, he is purple. No lap time to compare Delta against. I really wish that was kind of a feature that they would add in the game. If you could pick another driver in front and compare sector times, that would be fantastic. Absolutely fantastic for commentary. Not for many other purposes, but for commentary purposes would be pretty nice. Gronk, purple through the second sector. You get the inkling that this will be another high 14 from Former world champ using all of the track. I mean, driving on the line with those left tires. And as he pulls that McLaren across the line, it is a 15-2. Must have left a little bit in that third sector, as Dave was the first under 115 in Q2. Fastest time of 1:14.966. So a couple different guys are out there on different laps. Let's go down the grid a little bit here. Let's take a peek. What's Lucid doing? He's on an invalid lap. Flame is just starting a hot lap, it looks like. So we'll hop on board with the Williams and see what he has got. Whipping his way through that chicane. Oh, as he goes flying off the track, does Flame. Yeah, straight off the camera shot goes the man who is in P2 in the World Championship. Okay, let's hop on Lucid, who did not fly off the track at that corner. I was just gonna make the comment as he went whipping off the track of how quick you have to take that chicane to not lose any time. You break a half second too long. It's such a high speed 8 to 4, traditionally an 8 to 4, 8 to 5 gear shift chicane, and then to hold that speed and control it through that next left-hander is really tough. And Flame decided that he was going to illustrate my point before I could even say it and just, send it through the gravel at 130 miles an hour. Lucid on a flyer, though, purple through the second sector, as that Mercedes trying to get through to Q3. He was a shock Q1 elimination after he DNF'd at the end of Q1 trying to get out of P15. And this time he goes a 14-4. So the gauntlet thrown down by the Mercedes. He says, yeah, I'll put the 14-4 down and let everyone else come chase that time for the rest of the session. He is set and through to his first Q3 of Season 7. On board with Fawn here. Working his way through the second sector. And around the final corner. Out towards the line. It's going to be a pretty high 15. It's going to be a low 16. 0.43. That puts him in the drop zone. I mean, I say the drop zone. We are awaiting hot laps here from Flame and Parks. They were both, I believe, in the top 5, if not the top 4 in Q1. So we have a couple guys who you would say their pace is out of position at the moment. I'm sure they're both trying to get themselves out of that drop zone here as swiftly as possible. Flame is on his way to the line, puts the overtake on. And it's only a 15-6 here from the Williams, so he is indeed in that danger zone. And that is exemplified further as Parks goes a 15-3 up to P5. So Flame is going to have to do another lap here to save himself from that drop zone. But with 5.5 to go, the drop zone is set. It is Mel, Fawn, Josh, Svensson, and Coach who are in the drop zone and are going to have to work some magic here late in Q2. Coach not on a flyer here. Josh is on a flyer, trying to get himself out of P13. And he cuts a chicane just a little too tight, and that is going to cost the Haas what looks like it might have been a pretty quick lap. Fawn getting wheeled in. A lot of guys who are in the pits at this point. That's a great time. I know we've mentioned it. Show you what the driver standings look like to this point. Through that first week, we said Lucid is our leader, Flame in P2. Squatch was a bit of a surprise in P3, had no penalties in Canada, and that's what propelled him after a late safety car. He was one of the, I think, 2 drivers that finished that race with no penalties, and it was enough to get him on the podium. He was 4/1000ths, so .004 away from knocking Flame out of P2. That was the shock. Dismal had a P5 finish after what was not a great qualifying for Mercedes. He pulled it back to P5 to get 10 points, and that's where he sits in the championship. One of the few rookies who have put points up between both tiers. Puts us back on board with Dismal, and he is in the danger zone, not in the drop zone, but in the danger zone very much with a 15.676. That is just over 2/10, or just under, 2/10 of space away from P12. That's how tight that group is right there. And we will see, with under 3 minutes to go now, who has got a magic lap in them in that bottom 5? Who can find the improvement to pull themselves clear of the drop zone? 5 drivers, 4 different teams represented in that drop right now. You would bank on Coach to maybe get himself out of there with pace. Josh was looking good. Fawn had a quick time in Q1 as well. And Dismal up to P4, so he's done his job in terms of getting himself clear with a 15.1. You'll probably see him through here in Q3. Let's ride along here with Mel as he's also trying to get himself into that third qualifying session. Red Bull, no points just yet. And an invalid lap for Mel. That could be costly, as he needs just about 7/10 to get himself out of Q2. And now he's going to need to wait, and he's going to have to probably put in a hero lap here. Also working on a hot lap is Fawn. Did not see his time through that. Will it show me? Not through the first sector. It won't. Of course not. In the top right. Just trying to find the delta. That's all. As here goes Fawn through the double right-hander. Keeps it between the lines, and between the lines, still through that chicane here, looking like a decent time for Fawn. If he can get it to the line. Goat the first to say, yeah, I'm good. And good enough he will be with a 14.7 here, as we're going to go ahead, stick it on that TV pod for Fawn all the way to the line. It's a race, and he doesn't have enough to improve, or it's a narrow improvement, but not enough. So it's got to be maybe a hero lap. There's only 20 seconds, so I don't think so. Fawn, it looks like, is out in Q2. He's the first to be eliminated. Flame has been dropped down to 11th. That is your big name that would be knocked out here. Now down to 12th. Is Coach able to improve, but Coach not able to improve enough, and that is most likely the McLaren driver done. Is he on a lap? Yeah, no deploy. He is done. So it looks like, yeah, Coach is done. The session's over. Who can find the pace? Svensson is out. Fawn is out. Mel, invalid, is out. Flame driving very slowly, and that is a Williams who is out in Q2 and was expecting to fight for the win from the jump. He is out, and Coach also is out. There is your 5 drivers who have been eliminated, and we have our top 10 who will fight it out for pole position here in Imola.
I can't deny I've done it again, I've done it again. I tried to fight, but I'm in love again. Don't need no problems, no, don't need no pain. I came for one thing, so don't get in my way. I can't deny I've done it again, I've done it again. I tried to fight, but I'm in love again. Don't need no problems, no, don't need no pain. I came for one thing, so don't get in my way.
And welcome back to Imola. It is time. We have 11 minutes and 15 seconds for our third qualifying session. This will decide pole position for tonight's race. We've had our shock knockout. Last week it was Lucid, who was out in Q1. This week it is Flame, who is out in Q2. He will start P12 on the grid. And it's going to be a tough recovery drive for the Williams. He will definitely need a safety car. That's kind of the benefit that Lucid had last week, was that he had the safety car, a couple safety cars really come out and bunch that field up. He was able to go long on some hard compound tires and take it all the way to the end. So safety car going to be needed by him, as well as Coach, who is out in P11, to try and pull themselves back into contention for a podium or a race win. In the meantime, though, it has been a handful of quick drivers who have broken into the 114s, and in a shock to really nobody, it is Lucid who is on pace. You know, he's on track to be on pole position, but don't count out a guy like Gronk. Dave also was in the 14s, so could be someone to watch there, but we're going to see a lot of quick driving here in our third qualifying session. Josh is taking us around our first hot lap. Looks like it might be the first time lap. Little lock up there through that Sector 3 chicane. And the first timed lap of the session is a 16:0. 8.5 to go. Third qualifying session. Kick with 2 drivers into Q3. Mercedes with 2. Haas with 2 as well. Also have a couple of solo riders in Dave, Goat, Gronk, and Cloud for their respective teams as Squatch goes fastest. A 15.543 for the man who scored a podium in race number 1 of his sophomore season. Did that again by keeping it clean and on track in Canada, and if he can do that again here today, as we mentioned at the outset of the broadcast, it has been finicky track limits with the latest patch here at Imola. So if Squatch can keep it on track, look for another solid finish here for the second-year Sauber driver. Put you on board with Lucid. Expected to be in heavy contention for pole position here. Took a lot of curb there on the second of that double right-hander and now into the chicane that he's going to have to nail. Still had a purple sector, even taking all that curb, and took a little bit too much on that right side, or maybe not too much, but more than he probably would have liked to. But you know it's still going to be a quick lap here if he can just nail these last couple corners. And he does all the aggression that he needed to, none more. He will tow this to the line in a 14.450. So he threw the gauntlet down in Q2, and he throws the gauntlet down again in Q3. And right now it is a Mercedes 1-2 at the top of the qualifying charts. We'll see here if this man in the papaya has anything to say about, well, not with that lap, never mind. Okay. We didn't say that. We're just going to see what Deku's doing. Let's go ahead and see what he's doing. Deku, what do you got for us, man? Rookie makes his first Q3. Let's see what he's got. With that DRS flap open. Charging hard, just under 6 minutes to go here in Q3. Riding all the curb there on the second bit of that chicane. Carries the speed nicely through that next turn into this tough downshifting chicane. It's downshifting, but still high speed, but you don't brake fully. It's a bit of a really, it's a really tricky one to really, nail on a hot lap. The battery's deploying, power deploys different. And, just a little too far outside. And that Sauber's lap is going to be deleted. As we'll hop back on with Goat coming up on 5 minutes remaining in Q3. Let's see what Goat has got for us. He's got, you know what he has? He has an Aston Martin driving in front of him, and he's going to go invalid on that first chicane. He's got Dave just mowing down advertising signs right in front of him there on the front of the shot as he's coming down that front straight. Gronk has the hot lap on the battery. And is on a much quicker lap this time around. 49.9 through 2 sectors here. Just got to nail that chicane. Track doesn't turn red, so he's got it down pat. Let's see what he's going to throw down. It would be his first timed lap that is valid in the session. Able to hit that second to last corner, put the last one, and get the power down to the floor. Here comes the McLaren across the line, smack the bollard out of the way, and it is going to be a 15-0. Good for P2, still 6 tenths off of what Lucid has done at the front. Can anyone stop this Mercedes from taking pole position? As Deku is coming to the line here on another hot lap. This one going to be valid and going to be a 15-6, good for P6 for the Sauber. 2 drivers left with no timed laps. Cloud has a slow timed lap, and we're going to have to wait for a pit stop to get the Ferrari back out and running again. It's going to be Goat, who is now trying to weave his way through the first sector. Again, him and Dave, the only 2 that have yet to put a lap time on the board. Does an expert job of navigating that difficult chicane here. Purple sector 1 for the V-Carb here. This could be a game-changing lap here for Goat, working his way through this double right-hander. Left a little bit of space to the inside through that first turn, but just keeps it in line on the second end of it through this chicane. And we've seen a handful of guys get caught out here. It's a purple second sector for Goat. Is he going to pin this on provisional pole with 2 minutes to go in the session? Around the second to last corner, using all of the track. Puts the throttle to the floor. Is he going to have enough to get to the line? It's a 14.598 for Goat, who goes on to the front row next to the Mercedes of Lucid. Dave also registers a lap time with a 15.1. That's good to put him second row, just ahead of Dismal by 3/100ths of a second. So now it's going to get juicy. 1:38 to go. Let's see what chaos is going to unfold in front of us here. Parks to the line. He's up to P4 now. And he has retired. He said, I'm good. That's all I can do. Nothing better. And the AI will pull him off to the side. Everybody on the track, save for Deku. Cloud, the only one without a hot lap, timed lap. He's got a 23.000 on the board. But that was not a push lap. He's got him. Goat queued up right behind him here. Goat is going to have to find some improvement. So far, him and Lucid, the only drivers into the 14s. I had speculated we'd be down in the 13s. Mistaken on that one. 20 seconds to go, though, so guys are going to have to be starting or finishing those final laps. Here we go. What does Cloud have in his back pocket? Can the Ferrari pull himself out of P10? What is it going to be? Deku, his session is over. He is done in the pits. Cloud is working his way through the end of Sector 2. As we had a Haas come to the line, that's Josh. He stays P7. Looks like we're going to have a Mercedes coming to the line as well as that Dismal or Lucid. It's Dismal who goes on to the second row, pushes Gronk to the edge of the second row. Squatch pushes him to the third row. What does the McLaren have in order to answer as he is getting jumped by driver after driver, and he's into the wall as soon as we switch to the camera. Gronk is out. He's in P6. Lucid, it looks like, is on for pole position. And Cloud is going to go P4 with a 14.7. Guys are saving their best for last, and it is Lucid on pole for Mercedes. Goat in the V-Carb in P2. Dismal P3. Cloud in 4th. Dave and Squatch will make up row 3. Gronk in P7 after crashing out on his final attempt will start alongside Parks, and it is Josh and Deku who make up the top 10. So we've got the grid. All that's left to do is drive the race. Back in a few here with our main event of the evening here from Imola. All right, so we do have a little bit of a change to our run of show this evening. As you can see, we've got guys leaving the session. We did load into a rainy Imola. The decision has, it looks like, been made that Ronaroa will not be driving in the T1 race tonight. So we are going to get the lobby reset, and we will start with 19 cars. Oops, I'm getting booted back to the lobby. We will restart with 19 cars here in just a few minutes as soon as we can get the lobby formed up. In the meantime, I'm going to boot you out to my home screen with hopefully a much less... oh boy, now my game's crashing. Love that. We're going to send you back out to hopefully a much less vulgar song if I can find one on Spotify. So back in a few with the GP from Imola.
We're too young. We're too young. just too dumb. And we're just too dumb to think. Just too dumb. We're too young. And we're just too dumb to think. We're too young. Just too dumb. We're too young. And we're just too dumb to think. We're too young. Just too dumb.
I can feel. I can feel. I can feel.
I'm just calling to say that I love you, and I care about you, and I can't wait to see you soon.
I can feel. 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 You in my. You in my. You in my. You in my. I can feel. I can I can I can feel.
And welcome back to what was a dry Imola track is now a soggy Imola track. It is a wet race, which is always, as you know, just the most fun on F1, any F1 game. I would say F1 24, but any F1 game. The most fun that we're going to have here. It is a mostly wet race, I think, is what we are expecting. That's what the weather calls for. I think there might be a dry patch right at the end. We did have to kind of manually recreate what the weather looked like with the lobby reset, so guys do kind of know what to expect to some degree, but it is still going to be probably just as unpredictable on track as if they were just going into the unknown. They just have that strategy screen, really. The only thing they have to go off of. The grid has been reformed, minus the driver that was in P20. They have been removed for disciplinary reasons. And that's that. We have a formation lap to get on with and a race to get on with, more importantly. And we are excited to bring that action as we throw the team standings up. This is what the team standings look like heading into week number 2. It's Mercedes with that 17-point lead over Williams in P2, and down the order it goes. Red Bull, Haas, and Racing Bulls, the only ones to not score in that first week. And it is full wet tires for... Whoops, I've got this in the way, don't I? Let's try that again. It is full wet tires for the entire grid, up and down from front to back. I'm assuming we're going to see a lot. I mean, you just look at that track. It is soaked. Standing water everywhere. It's going to be a while until we even get something close to a dry line for these guys to run on here. So it'll make for a very interesting race start. And yeah, we're gonna get to take a good look at our first wet race action of Season 7. Those were the team standings. I'd kind of cut the graphic, but this is what the president's standings look like heading into today's race. Oh boy, I accidentally axed the president's standings there. But that's what they look like going into the race here. Kick in the lead, 62 or 65 and a quarter in terms of the total points. Their drivers in prime position here in T1, P6, P10. The start, obviously the goal in that case, just to bring it home. Lucid starts on pole, making his way to the grid. Last couple cars are working their way around those corners. And did we just... Okay. Maybe that was just Lucid that just drove straight past the starting line. That was weird. Either way, handful of guys with some parking problems. But it is time for the driving to do the talking. 5 lights, 19 cars. They go out, and Can-Am is racing in a wet Imola. Lucid gets a great start. I have a terrible view of what's going on, and maybe it wasn't a great start because the Mercedes is down in P3, and it is Goat who leads into that first chicane. Drivers are going to be going off here most likely. No, everyone keeps it neat and tidy through the first couple corners, and it is Goat with a 1.4 second lead. He is trying to race away from this pack as the spray kicks up behind him here. A solid start. Gronk also up several places here. Flame up a couple spots. We'll get the total of who's up, down, left, right in terms of places, as there's still some jockeying going on down the order here. So again, we're going side by side. Guys giving each other lots of room through this opening lap, and some work here now between even the Kick Saubers. That's a Ferrari that's gone off the track in front of them here. So we talked a lot about track limits during the qualifying session here. And in the wet, that gets even harder to control. But I'll tell you what, it is Goat who is 2 seconds clear, and he is cruising out front, trying to build a gap between himself and the likes of Lucid and Dismal. And Dismal right now is under attack from his team principal and teammate in Lucid. Goat, obviously the fastest lap, as he was the quickest off the line to get moving. As Lucid, he'll move into P2. No DRS for this race, as Gronk sneaks up the inside as well. You can just hear the throttle work that's going on this car. These guys are trying to keep those rear tires in touch with the pavement. I think it's been enough time that we can take a look. So Deku, a big winner off the jump, 5 places what he gained, as well as Matt, also up 5 starts in the opening bit here, as that is Lucid who goes off track. Just trying to keep that car moving. DNFs, as we talked about last week, a big, big part of Can-Am this season. Going to cost your team money if you go over the allocation. And the most important thing is just finishing the race. That is the most important piece of the season for the cost cap as far as where we're at now. Dave had a rough start, as did Josh. He is down 7 spots in P16, so something to watch out for, seeing if he can recover through the field. No penalties yet. 2 laps in. That's already better than we did last week. We had, I think, penalties like 3 corners into the race or something like that. But that front 3 spreading out a decent chunk. It is Goat who is out in front by 2.8 seconds. Running from Lucid, Gronk, and the like. Dismal, Deku in tow. Parks a bit of a gap as Flame has now moved up to P7, getting some clean air and a big snap there. The rear tire is just not agreeing with the track conditions out of that corner. You can see how they're having to just crawl through some of these quicker chicanes. And just gingerly get on the throttle. Rain still coming down hard. And it's Goat in command out front. Lap 3 of 32. Another guy who you might look at as out of position, that's Coach. He's down there in P12. Got one of the closer gaps, and that's the first penalty that we're going to see in the race. Goes to Squatch. 3 seconds for those excessive warnings that are being given on track limits. And right now it's Coach who's under attack from Svensson behind him. Goat pumps in the fastest lap. Lucid an even faster one after that. He just took 3/10 out of the lead, as it's going to be Coach who is trying to play offense and defense at the same time in that McLaren. Squatch getting past Cloud just in front of him. And nobody going to be close enough to do much of anything on this occasion. Guys have kept it on track so far. As Coach maybe going to have a peek down the inside on Svensson. No, he's not. This is a little tight pack here of Svensson, Coach, and Mel, and Matt. All of them are kind of bunched up there. Are we going to maybe see an overtake here? Someone's peeking down the inside. It looks like that Red Bull thought better of that inside line here as they back out, leaving Coach to his place. Down in the battle for P11 here. That's what we're watching as we're on board with the McLaren here through the chicane. He's going to get a pretty good run here, you have to think, off of the final corner. That could be all it takes. No DRS in the wet conditions. Makes things a bit tougher to get by. You've got to use that battery to your advantage here. Lucid taking another chunk out of Goat's lead there. Buzz T picks up a penalty there for warnings. And right now, guys are settling in up and down the order. We'll work up to Parks here, who's chasing after Deku for P5, and Deku hot on the tail of Dismal, who is on the tail of Gronk. Lucid also closing quickly now on Goat. Once those wet tires get into a good working range, they are pretty lethal even in these harsher conditions. Dismal picks up 3 seconds for track limits. Lucid now under a second. We'll hop back up here. He is chasing down Goat. Goat having to crawl, maybe locked up a bit, having to kind of crawl it through these corners here. It's Lucid with a good exit, still 9/10 back. Fastest lap of the race for the Mercedes. That was 4/10 faster than the one he already had. Gronk is 3 seconds behind him here. In P3, Dismal hot on his tail, but now with 3 seconds of penalties to worry about. Flame has taken 4/10 out of the lead that Parks had on him. And that's partially because Parks is right on the back of the Deku and Dismal train here with Gronk. And that is going to slow him down as, Flame has now gotten that gap under a second. And we'll see what the Williams can do as this race progresses. Fawn looks like he gets past Vivoda there for P16. And Coach still right on the back of Svensson. Everyone kind of holding order, holding rank at the moment. So let's see if anyone is going to make an overtake here. Great exit out of that corner. Gave us about 2/10 advantage there to Svensson. That was a gap. He's going to have to work on that exit in order to fend off that McLaren. Goat puts in the fastest lap of the race, still holding off Lucid at the front. And Coach, is he going to have enough to take a peek at an overtake? I don't think so. That is a 5/10 gap, a bit hard to make up. It looks like we are just going to play the old ride in circles game for a little bit until someone can get a good run or get an advantage, and I will be watching deltas to try and figure out who that will be. Fawn going to pick up a penalty for warnings here. Rapid Pace finds himself in P16 at the moment. He joins Dismal, Squatch, and Buzz T with track limit penalties. Right now it is Gronk who is leading this small pack, an army behind him, a small army behind Gronk in that McLaren. That's the view off the rear wing of the Papaya Team Principal. Oh, and that is that's a Mercedes. Dismal getting very close, under braking, just kept it out of the diffuser of that Mercedes, and that's going to cost him. Has Dismal now fallen into a bit of a trap here of Deku? Can anyone make the lunge? On the Mercedes, it doesn't look like it. Maybe Deku's going to have a peek. No, he won't. Thinks better and says, yep, I'll just live to fight another day instead. And as they zoom down towards that second chicane, all it's going to take is just one slip off the brake, one slip of the thumb when you're steering in these wet conditions. That is all it can take. Imola is such a difficult circuit to drive, and when you add water, it just gets tougher. And obviously that's the case in everything, but Imola in particular, this is, as you look at Dismal collecting it and just keeping it on track, and he might have just bumped into Deku, nothing intentional, but trying to get back on that racing line. Imola in particular is very unforgiving in the wet. It is a circuit that puts a very high load on your springs, and that is going to be Parks, who gives Flame a nudge off the track. And Flame comes back on. He gives a bump right back to Parks, who gives him back the position. Fair play to both guys. Again, nothing intentional, or at least nothing like what we saw in qualifying. Everyone keeping position where they should be. And again, that's another thing that just gets even tougher in the rain. Those little, tiny adjustments that you have to make. They get even tougher to make in the rain when you're trying to keep the fronts in contact with the pavement and not lose any unnecessary grip. Deku picks up 3 seconds for track limits. And it looks like Lucid also just picked up a penalty as well. He's cut the gap. Closest it's been all day, 0.6. 0.5 now, as he is chasing Goat up the hill into Sector 2. Could we see our first overtake attempt for the lead? Gap down to 0.3, 0.2. Lucid right on the back of the V-Carb here as they head through Sector 3 now. Flame picks up a warnings track limit penalty. His first, 3 seconds. We're on lap 9 of 32, heading into lap 10, just at a third of race distance. Here it is. Can Lucid get the run he is looking for? It's a decent exit from the Mercedes. Gronk with a penalty. Battery is engaged there for Lucid. Let's see if he has enough of a run, and it looks like he's going to be just a bit too far back to make the lunge. Dismal gets by Deku. Down the straight. Deku had a moment, and he pitted. Deku has box.